Welcome to Let's Therapy, where we get real and raw about your mental health, faith, and blended family. We're your hosts, counselors Scott and Vanessa Martindale. Now let's therapy. Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Let's Therapy. We are your hosts, Scott and Vanessa Martindale. I'm just here with my bride here today, and it's awesome. So we're excited.
Yes.
Before we get going, hey guys, this is not a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling in any area that we're talking about, we highly suggest that you find a local counselor, or if you need immediate help, calling 911 or 988 to get help immediately. But today, we're going to dive into something.
Yeah.
Are you angry?
No.
I mean, I'm not angry right now. I'm not hangry. There's hangry. There's hungry angry.
Definitely been hangry before.
We suffer from hangry every now and then. But we're going to talk about anger issues. And I just know, that people deal with this, and they deal with it in different ways.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get immune to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just an angry person. But we're really going to talk about, one of the signs that you may need help, and then some treatment areas and maybe some behavioral techniques that we can teach you to how you can control your anger, because nobody really wants to be angry.
No.
So let's talk about when the signs that you have anger issues first.
Well, first, let's define it. So, the nature of anger, and this comes from the American Psychological Association, you guys, and it says that it's an emotional state that varies in intensity from mild irritation to intense fury and rage. And anger can be caused, by both external things, internal things, and ultimately it can cause psychological and biological changes, like your blood pressure can go up, your heart rate. It can, fluctuate the level of your energy hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline. So, it's something that it varies, but it can affect you psychologically and physically.
Yeah, and here are the signs that you may have anger issues. So, number one, you're hurting others either verbally or physically. Mm-hmm. You always find yourself getting or feeling angry. You feel that your anger is out of control. You frequently regret something that you said or done while you were angry. Mm-hmm. And you notice that small or petty things make you angry.
Yeah. So
just kind of thinking about those, Vanessa, I mean, I know that there's a tendency for people to get upset.
Yeah.
So I want to draw this line between, there's nothing wrong with if you get upset sometimes, something's upset you. Mm-hmm. Anger is the next level. Mm-hmm. It is uncontrollable. It is whether you are really physically or verbally hurting people. And then the other side that you may really have an anger issue, and this is one of the things I want to pull out from that list, is that later on you feel regret.
Yeah.
And that you did something incorrectly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anger itself, it kind of intertwines in a lot of areas of psychological disorders.
Sure.
So we know that, with increased anxiety, we know with some dissociative disorders, anger can be present.
Yeah.
And generally, we take our anger out on the people that are closest to us.
Yep. Yeah.
So look at our spouse, we look at our children, we look at our workplace relationships. Yeah. That's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but it's like when we harbor that anger in and we don't process through that, and we don't process through our emotions, and we don't extend forgiveness or receive forgiveness, that turns into bitterness. And just exactly what you were talking about, Scott, that bitterness is what will spill over into your relationships, into your marriage, into your relationship with your stepchildren or your co-parent, things like that. And so it's always good to address it. And if you're struggling with a spouse or maybe even a child that is dealing with anger issues, getting licensed help to help process and develop healthy coping mechanisms and techniques that can help you work through that. So cognitive restructuring is one way, and that's you actually specialize in that.
Yeah, cognitive. And another way to say that is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
And really what it is the concept of looking at the result of behavior and then kind of backtracking and then getting kind of to the root of that. And then we look at changing those behaviors, therefore changing the result.
Yeah.
And as we look at changing and we look at those causes of anger, so that's the issue, is what causes people to be angry?
Yeah.
Well, we look at stress, we look at financial issues, abuse, poor social or family situations, an overwhelming requirement of your time and energy. So again, all of this stems from, hey, I'm either A, not dealing with this correctly or in a healthy way. Therefore, I'm so upset with the result that it turns into extreme anger.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're not angry because, you feel like that anger is going to change the situation long term.
Yeah.
It's really, you're trying to change a short-term problem.
Yeah.
So we go back to it. How are you managing stress? This is where the behavioral therapy comes in.
Mm-hmm.
How are you managing stress? Are you working out? Are you making time for good communication with your spouse? Are you guys doing these things that help you manage a stressful situation? Financial issues. Sometimes we put ourselves in those situations where we're like, hey, we're overextended, and that is the byproduct, then causes stress, then causes anger.
Well, and that comes with, changing your environment. This is one thing that I want to add, because you have to give yourself a break sometimes. You have to make sure that you have some personal time, like you were talking about, Scott, working out, developing relaxation techniques, having better communication with your spouse or with your family member, or whoever it is, that you may be working with this through. But, scheduling, times throughout the day where you're feeling stressful, you're making pockets of peace to change your environment and get out of the things that may be triggering you, so to speak, or causing the anger to rise.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody wants to be angry. So we look at it and go, hey, what can we do? I know I love that you said, kind of take time. So taking a time out, when you feel yourself kind of getting heated, sticking with, if you're dealing with somebody who does have anger issues, sticking with I statements. We talked about this in a previous episode, saying, hey, when you're like this, I feel this way. I feel unsafe. I love one of the things that is possible is, and I think a lot of couples just don't do this, using more humor. I mean, life is supposed to be a little bit fun.
Yeah.
I know one of the studies that I studied in college is they had took people who had different, emotional behavior problems or anger problems, and they made them watch comedies.
Yeah.
Like old, reruns of, whatever comedy show out there. Anyway, the exposure to laughter also releases tension.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing too, guys, is our anger and frustration can be caused by very real, inescapable problems in our lives. So, not all anger is misplaced, and it's often, it's a natural response to the difficulties in life that we change, or that we experience. But problem solving, being able to work through those things, sit down and look at the problem and say, okay, this is what's going on. How can we work through this? Or how can I work through this? But I love that you said humor. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So important.
Well, and we've talked about this so many times, and we're going to look at this in the context of marriage, because we assume most people who listen to our podcast are married and that they're in blended families, because that's a lot of what we do. But if you're married, a lot of times anger happens because problems are not dealt with. It's just like one thing adds to two, and two things adds to four, and four to eight. And that's why we talk about, as couples, making sure that you're meeting regularly.
Yeah.
That you're having time to have difficult conversations. I'm going to point this out because we were talking about this a little earlier in the week. If your spouse is upset about something, let them vent. Let them have an opportunity to talk without you being defensive to them, or without you questioning their motives or what's going on. Give your spouse room to have a safe place to talk.
Yeah.
As a couple.
No, that's good. Well, and when we look at it biblically, I mean, we've all heard this verse, y'all, and it's Ephesians 4:26, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. And, we can experience these natural emotions. You're going to experience grief. You're going to experience anger or frustration or sadness, joy, love. You're going to experience these things. But what I love about this, it's telling us to not sin in that. So, if you get frustrated with your spouse, don't sit in that frustration. Do, what we've been talking about, processing through that, changing your environment, relaxation techniques, using humor, things like this that will prevent you from going to the next level of anger. And then when we hit that anger, we're saying things that we wouldn't normally want to say. We're doing things that we wouldn't normally want to do. And we're hurting people that we never intended to hurt.
Well, and the reality of anger is if you really want to get to a solution, a soft, sweet voice gets there a lot quicker.
Sure.
And so, again, we know today's culture is faster. It requires more of us than any time in history. We're spending less time with our family, less time doing things we enjoy, less time de-stressing than any time in our history. So we know that this is a problem that destroys marriages. We know that people don't want to inherently be angry. So what we're suggesting is, one, pay attention to it. If it's something you struggle with, go find a counselor. Counselors are great at helping you deal with anger issues. This is what we do. So don't feel embarrassed. Walk into your counselor's office, find a counselor, walk in there. Hey, I struggle with anger.
Yeah.
I want to not struggle with this. Can you teach me behaviorally how I can do better with managing my anger?
Yeah, that's good.
And then from there, you're going to see your family situations improve greatly. So, guys, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. It was all about how to deal with anger. And if this touched you in any way, please make an opportunity to go seek help, go seek treatment. We'll definitely be supporting you in that nature. Guys, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.
Be blessed in all that you do.